In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
You might remember Memphian coach Bill Courtney from the Oscar-winning documentary Undefeated. Now, he's got an awesome movement and podcast called An Army of Normal Folks that you can check out at normalfolks.us.
I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and welcome to The Sidebar, a weekly show on the community, arts, culture, and more. Today, we're very pleased to be talking to Paul Chandler, Executive Director of GPAC. So stay with us for a conversation with Paul. And a special thanks to our sponsor, Youth Villages. Paul, thanks for having us out to your office.
Thank you. Good morning.
Appreciate it. Good morning. So if you're, especially if you're out of town, you're somewhere, people ask you what you do. What is your, how do you tell them what GPAC is, Germantown Performing Arts Center, and what you do?
You know, it depends on who's asking.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of where, I mean, in a unique scenario, so if you're potentially interested in arts and entertainment, and that might fascinate you, or if the person asking was a legislature. Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a department head with the city of Germantown.
An underreported fact, probably.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It is.
You think of GPAC and you lose track of it. It is a division of
City of Germantown. It is a department with the city of Germantown. And the other response is I'm in show business, or I'm in arts, or I'm in entertainment. And I find that, just to divide that even further, sometimes if I want to encourage the conversation, I'll tell somebody I'm in the arts presenting business. Yeah. But if it's another type of person, I might tell them I'm in the entertainment business. Yeah. Because arts and entertainment is sort of, you kind of go two different directions.
This is a dumb question, but I would ask it anyway. This is what I do for a living sometimes. Is what percentage of the people who come to GPAC know that it's a part of the city of Germantown government?
We try to do a good job of that at curtain speeches. I will recognize that the mayor's here and that we're a part of the city of Germantown, and we fall in line with, the city of Germantown's mission to provide incredible experiences for visitors and citizens.
Yeah. It's just interesting. It's like for us at Daily Memphian, even still 6.5 years later, I think last summer at least, it was almost 50% of our readers didn't know we're a nonprofit. Just had no idea. Even though we've talked about, we did a big campaign this fall, talked about, I think probably more people are sick of hearing that we're a nonprofit. But it's just like people lose track, and which actually is probably a compliment to you. If people don't know, they just like GPAC, and they just like
the Daily Memphian.
Yeah, right. I was trying to get that's nice for you to say, but right. I mean, what you want is for this to be a great experience for the people who come to see a performance.
Correct, or participate in some manner.
Yeah. We'll talk a bit more about kind of the upcoming, spring season, summer, upcoming shows and so on. But I am sort of always interested. Like we had Kevin Sharp from the Dixon on recently and got really in the weeds about how traveling exhibits come together, and that whole notion that I think they just closed. They had one exhibit that came together on a couple months' notice, and was this amazing private collection of art that came together in a matter of months. And the other traveling exhibit that was Trains in American Art took 5 years.
Sure.
So for you look at, like, if people go to your website and they go upcoming season and, all these various performances, that is booked. How much in advance are you booking acts?
Interesting question. And herein lies another way that we're a bit unique. So this organization, prior to my most recent arrival, was in our industry called a presenter, an arts presenter, performing arts presenter. And to answer your question, that stuff is booked 14 months in advance, 12 to 14 months in advance. And we build what we call a performance season, and we sell season tickets, and we have subscribers, and we want people to subscribe to that and go on this journey with us. And, we will buy everything in the fall. We will announce it in February.
And by buy, you mean sign contracts with acts. And pay whatever upfront fee might be.
Who are going to start in that next fall and go all the way through the next spring.
Yeah.
So that is that's the presenting business. I brought a new element to the organization in that we're also a promoter. What we call, so it's a very internal term for us here, but we play concert promoter.
Okay.
So commonly, which means we pick up performers, national touring acts, as they're coming through, and that can be 3 months, 5 months, 4 months, 6 weeks in advance. Okay.
6 weeks.
Depends on who it is. If it's an easy, this is going to sell out immediately. We get a phone call. Yeah. Something happened. Can we go route through you? We're on our way to Nashville or whatever. So we'll make a deal. We'll play opportunist.
Yeah.
Interesting part of that model is how we use our contributed money, like our season sponsors.
Yeah.
We actually use those dollars to offset the expense of the national touring acts, which get pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And those acts that are bought a year and 12 months in advance are flat guarantees. So Eric Barnes and the Rockets wants $25,000. We'll say, here you go, $25,000. We'll see you 12 months from now.
And whether anybody shows up and buys a seat or a glass of wine or anything, you're still on the hook. You've paid that money.
Correct.
And so that's your risk in terms of booking things and putting that money up front.
Correct. And then so for promoter shows, we commonly do a guarantee and a back end.
Oh, okay.
So like, hey, you're coming through. We don't have time to like raise sponsor support for this show. They just want to sell some tickets, make their money and go. So then Eric Barnes and the Rockets wants to do that model, or the agency representing them.
Yeah.
And we'll say, okay, we'll give you $15,000 plus 85% of the net.
Yeah. Okay. And how many shows do we put on in a year? Give or take?
National touring shows, I would say 15 to 40. Local shows, which really dominates the Grove programming.
Yeah.
That's another 35.
Yeah.
And then educational programs for kids, that's another, 16, 17.
Yeah. So it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And relentless. It's right? I mean, it's like, whoa, we just got done and wow, we got a show in X number of days.
Yeah, we used to, it's funny how this Grove, and I'm sure we'll get into the Grove project, the outdoor venue that opened in 20, when that hit our system and our team, we were, really super excited about it. Well, back in the day, the summer was meant for kind of a couple summer camps, and it's when we cleaned the building, we all took vacation.
Yeah.
And now this thing keeps us open.
Yeah.
So we're 12 months out of the year.
Again, I'll remind everyone we're talking to Paul Chandler. He is the executive director of GPAC, which includes the Grove. And so that opened 2020.
Yeah.
Right before COVID or in COVID?
We had the permission to open it to the public in May of 20.
Okay.
And we had our first gathering on June 3rd.
Yeah.
With 10 people.
So many people.
Whenever you want to hear that story, there's a great story about the opening of the Grove.
No, really, I want to hear that story. Really, literally 10 people came to see the show.
So here's
because that was deep COVID. Uncertainty. California, I think, still had its public spaces locked down, which seems silly and just ridiculous in hindsight. But no one really. It was so uncertain. Like, what is happening? How long will this go?
Everybody, every day. It was crazy. So it feels really good to talk about it now.
Yeah.
Right? It feels really good to talk about it when we're not dealing with sort of all the fear, right? So here's what happened. We're constructing this. The COVID happens in March. By May, the construction is over, and they're like, "Well, it's finished. Here are the keys."
Yeah.
And we're like, "Well, what do we do?" We as a arts organization, and quite frankly, as a department of the city, was like, we need to be relevant.
Yeah, right.
We need to do something because we're not in business. We're shuttered.
Yeah.
Like every other venue in the world, right? In the world.
Yeah.
And so the Shelby County Health Department was working with the city a lot on all of the factors going on. And so they And then all the rules started to roll out. You can have 10 people gather.
Yeah.
Right? So we said, okay, well, we have all these people that made these major gifts and we have board members. So here's what we did. For the first run, we said, okay, board member Bill Watkins, you can bring your family. You can bring 10 people.
Yeah.
And they showed up to the Grove and we gave them, we had signage to tell them about the different elements and they could walk around and we played something on the video wall and they got to go outside and do something.
And you didn't even have live acts.
No.
Because that was all, was that safe?
Yeah,
was that loud? Was that
Right.
anything?
Yes. Our memory is very.
Oh, it's haunting, really, when you think
haunting.
back on it.
So then Shelby County Health Department, so we went from 10 to 25, from 25 to 75, from 75 to 125. And we were doing, like everybody else, we were doing the circle rings.
Little pods of people.
Right.
And, separation.
And so there was a time in all of that, I think when we were at about 125, that I told my staff, I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 5 events a week for 5 weeks. We're going to do 25 gatherings. And we could do live music. We're doing like duos and trios and showing films and movies.
Yep.
And we searched and searched and searched in that time frame, and we couldn't find another venue in the country doing what we were doing. Yeah. And we did 165 events from June to June.
Gosh.
And it was remarkable. But
yeah,
we got to test drive the venue and figure it out. And
we
we would get letters from people, and people would tell us, like, this is the only thing I do. You've saved my life. I bring my mom.
Yeah.
It was really fulfilling for my
Absolutely.
team. And we did what arts programming is supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we create a
and ironically had the perfect venue for it.
I called it divine intervention all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, how did this happen at this moment?
How many people does in normal times?
Yeah,
we're in normal times. How many people in the GPAC
capacity?
Capacity, yeah, and in the Grove.
So the Highland Capitol Performance Hall, which is the main theater inside, is 854 fixed seats.
Okay.
Out the Grove has a fire marshal approval of 1,200.
Yeah.
But we cap it at 900.
Yeah.
Because we're still sort of. The customer experience for us is very important.
Sure. People don't want to be crowded and you're stepping on stuff or having your stuff stepped on. And that's not what you're after, right?
That's not what we're after.
Yeah.
So we want elbow room, we want some runaround room, kids run around.
Yeah.
People get to, get in little pods. And then parking is a little challenging, and we're working with our partners in the city about how, what can we do to expand parking capability.
Well, again, I'll remind everybody we're here with Paul Chandler. He's executive director of GPAC, includes the Grove. We'll talk more about upcoming performance and more about all this. But let me take a minute. I remind everyone, I'm Eric Barnes, and this is The Sidebar. It airs on WYXR 91.7 every Thursday at 11:30, focused on the community, arts, culture, everything in between. It is not just a radio show, though. It's one of a number of weekly podcasts we do at the Daily Memphian, including the Memphis Grizzlies podcast and our food podcast, Soundbites, sometimes hosted by Jennifer Chandler. Have you met Jennifer? It's funny, you guys have the same last name.
Brunette?
Yeah.
Real pretty?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's an HR
married to that
violation.
handsome guy?
Yeah, that one. We'll circle back to
Yes.
that to talk about Jennifer, who joined us, 8-9 months ago. So Soundbites, Holly Whitfield's been hosting now for the time being, but Soundbites airs on WYXR every Thursday at 11, right before The Sidebar. We also host the podcast version of Behind the Headlines. That's the TV show we produce with the folks at WKNO every week in our 15th season or 14th season. Coming up on 15 years. Yeah, it's kind of insane. All of our podcasts are on the Daily Memphian site, as well as iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also get this show and Soundbites on WYXR.org or download the WYXR app. That includes all the WYXR shows, archives of the talk shows, archives of the music shows. And if you're not a supporter of WYXR, do consider becoming one. It's nonprofit, listener-supported radio. You can become a member and get all kinds of great things, or you can just do a one-off donation. And if you're not a paid subscriber to the Daily Memphian, do consider becoming one. Paid subscriptions pay about a little over half of our costs, and we are the biggest newsroom in the area and one of the largest nonprofit newsrooms in the country. Coming up soon on the sidebar next week should be Andy Cates, who is chair of something called Memphis Fourth Estate. I've never heard of it. I look forward to talking to and hearing about that. We recently had Todd Richardson on talking about the new venue at Crosstown, other things at Crosstown, but we'll circle back with Paul here and talk a little bit about the new Live Nation venue down at Crosstown that's going in. We had Kevin Sharp from the Dixon talking about a couple of really great exhibits that unfortunately you missed if you didn't go because they ended their run on the 26th, but he's got a bunch of other stuff coming up at the Dixon. And we had DeMarcus Suggs. He is the city of Memphis, the newly created position of Director of Creative and Cultural Economy. It was great to talk to him about things that they're working on. I mentioned behind the headlines this week, we've got a roundtable journalist talking about all kinds of things. I imagine we're going to talk about Memphis Shelby County schools quite a bit. I'm just guessing. And we recently had Mayor Lee Harris, Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris, and Judge Tarek Sugarman talking about juvenile justice and other things going on with the mayor budget and so on. It was really great. We had a couple folks from the Memphis City Council on a show with some county commissioners on. We had Steve Mulroy, the DA, on maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, but still probably even as relevant now as it was then, as well as Brent Taylor, state senator, and London Marr, state senator. They were both on the show recently. You can get all those as podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can go to Daily Memphian or you can go to WKNO. Last bit of housekeeping. Our first business seminar of the year is coming up on February 27th at 3:30 at the Botanic Garden. That includes Tina Sullivan, who's the just retired as the head of Overton Park Conservancy, Ursula Madden, who is now at MLGW, was at the city, obviously was a long-time TV anchor, and Lee Mansberg from Junior Achievement. But we're here with Paul Chandler from GPAC. You've been in this kind of space and promotion and running GPAC. How long have you been at GPAC now? 10 years? Longer?
13.
13.
But it's my third time.
Third time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the short story with that is, so I worked here as the assistant director 1 year after it opened. So starting in 1994, from 94 to 2001, there was 5 employees.
Yeah.
I was the 5th employee hired.
Yeah.
And then I left. I went to the family business for a little while. My father's advertising marketing company.
Chandler Airline.
Chandler Airline.
Yeah.
So I actually started there when I was like 14.
Yeah.
Slave labor.
Yeah, my
But
family.
I learned
I'm a
that.
child of a family business. My joke about that is that I thought all families spent 24/7 talking about the business, and then I got to college and met other people and would go to their homes, and they didn't always talk about the business. And they didn't work summer and after school and the weekends. It's very strange. I didn't know
I'm
that.
sure your work ethic is good.
Yes, I
So
mean there
is
were
mine.
some benefits. There were
Yes.
definitely some benefits.
And then I left in, they asked me to come back as an interim executive director. And I did that for a year. And then after that, I left and started a company in and around that time called Resource Entertainment Group, which is still around these days, and where we navigated in that entertainment sector for 9-10 years.
Yeah. And Howard Stovall, that was Howard with Howard. He was on the show
Mike and Ron.
last summer or something like that. So he's been on the show a couple times. So you've been in this space and you talk about the GPAC as a presenter and sometimes a promoter. I am curious with Live Nation and the Crosstown space, I don't know that it's about 1,200 seats, I think is what they're talking about, 1,300 seats. Is it competition for you? Live Nation is its own animal, right? I mean, Ticketmaster, Live Nation, and the connections they have and having one of their sponsored spaces, as Todd talked about when he was on the show recently, you are hooked into a certain pipeline of acts when you are, Crosstown will own the venue, but Live Nation will run it. It bothers some people a lot, right? The Ticketmaster fees and the control and the evilness of it all. Yeah. And I have to say, as a consumer of live music, I don't care. Maybe I wish it weren't so if I thought about it really hard, but I want acts that don't come to the greater Memphis area to come to the greater Memphis area. But what is your take on all that you can say out loud on the record?
I've given it some thought, and I'm not surprised that a lot of people are passionate about it.
Yeah.
Because people get passionate about venues in their community. Yeah. Because people love to be entertained. And it's like, it's a big part of a lot of people's, daily and weekly life. And so everybody has an opinion about it, right?
Yeah.
But very few people are actually experts at it.
Absolutely.
So And I even know people who've been in the business for a long time who get really territorial.
Yeah.
Fiercely territorial.
Yeah.
And
we'll talk about those people after when we turn the recording off.
Yeah. So happy to. But I am just I am in and have been in this part of my career was like, I don't let that worry me at all. Look, and I was territorial and I was competitive about getting this act or that act, or always trying to get the biggest name act I possibly could to do what? To please my ego or what? And I dropped that a long time ago because at the end of the day, and I've noticed this around here, our business is tough. This market is really tough. That's what they'll learn. They probably already know that. Yeah. I'm certain that they do. And so, we're going to run into them trying to seek the XYZ performer. So they'll get it instead of us, and then we're just going to go buy another act. Right?
Yeah. Well, and because you guys have carved out a space and a brand and a kind of range of work that you put on, and
correct.
A place and location that's important in the same way that the shell is very important that it is in Overton Park.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, Crosstown is going to have some amount of affinity with this new theater space. And so some of it is like, some people really want to go to the FedEx Forum for a show, and get that big 10,000, 18,000 seat experience, right?
Yes.
I mean, some things aren't competitive even though they're in the same space.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. So, I welcome them to our market because I'm just a big believer that Memphis and the greater Memphis area just needs to keep rising up, and let's be a bigger city, and let's have more assets, and let's have more things to do. It's the people who own it and the people who risk the money are the ones that need to worry about, is this the right move or not? And so you better do your research before you say this is what we're going to do. And then you better put the right decision makers who are there, and this is what we do. And this is what the shell does. Just know where you are and know who's your customer, right? And then sell to your customer. Yeah. And a lot of times in my business, in sort of that kind of arts presenting business, the leader can be more of an artistic director than really an administrator. And that's when it can get a little squirrely, because they'll want to bring the things that individual likes and thinks that everybody else must like it too. It I've heard from somebody like me, in a position like me, in another place, in another world, say, if there's more people on stage than there is in the audience, then it's real art. Okay, well, you can do that a couple of times a year, but you can't let that drive the business, because that's an unsustainable model.
Yeah, that's really funny in some strange way.
Yes.
Todd has this great, in the interview I did with him, and we'll move on from that, but it was interesting about the research, and he said part of the research he did, was to look at three peer cities. I think it was Nashville, Raleigh, and Louisville, and look at venues in the 900 to 1500 space, which is what they thought, that were, and the touring acts. And there was something over a 1 year or 2 year period, I can't remember, 200 acts that went to all three of those cities in venues of that size. Almost all of them went to Live Nation affiliated venues, and only 20 of those acts, or 19 of those acts, came to Memphis.
Interesting.
So it's like 10%. So basically he's like, well, you start there. That's my simple math. There is, like it or not, there is something to, because you can say Nashville's booming and so on, but Louisville's very parallel to Memphis. I mean, it's not dissimilar in many ways.
Sure.
And Raleigh, I'm
glad you shared that. I'm going to study those markets.
Yeah, it was really, and my numbers might be slightly.
Sure.
Basically, it was 19 or 20 of the 200 to 230 and it was acts in that space. And it is what it is. It's Live Nation.
So as we end that part of the chat.
Yeah. But should move on from Live Nation.
I'll Live Nation all day. But I think capacity is a really interesting topic because people gravitate to it a lot. So here's some small true stories.
Yeah.
So first of all, we're 854 seats, and I've been saying this for years, but we buy like we had 1,200.
Yeah.
Right? Because our performances are offset by generous contributions from individuals and corporations, right? We want to give to this arts component because we do more than just put on a concert.
Yeah.
And so, interestingly enough, the great Rudy Scheidt, who was, a friend and a mentor and a consigliere and somebody I went to many times when they were designing the Scheidt Center, he was like, it needs to be 1,200 seats, 1,500 seats, but they settled on 900 for a variety of reasons, I'm sure. And I was in agreement with him. It was like, well, I'm not going to tell anybody.
Yeah.
But he was right. And Rudy did his math, and he was pretty good at making money. And then apparently Lore says the following, and the late, great Pat Halloran is not here to confirm this, but I'm certain I talked to him about it before. And I don't remember, there was the Cannon Center. I'm going to get myself in so much trouble. The Cannon Center design, but I've been around too long. The Cannon Center design was, being built, and apparently they went to Pat to say, what do you think the capacity should be?
Yeah.
And if memory serves me correctly, the Orpheum is 2,300.
Yeah.
And he said, look, I've studied this for you and I've examined it for you, and you need to do 2,100 seats.
Is that what they did? Is it 21?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a beautiful space.
It is. I mean, all those buildings are great. And it doesn't, it's 1,200, 900.
Yeah.
I will say that, like, we don't, for lack of a better term, compete, or we don't buy and navigate with the venues that are in town that are in the 300 to 400, right?
Right.
And they have a place and a role, and they're a great asset to the community. We're 850. It's a very 900. That's a very rare size around the country. It kind of goes like this: 400, 12 to 1,500, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, 20.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And the system of the price of the acts are all sort of in line with that. So we buy acts, national touring acts, traditionally, in the $20,000 to $35,000 range.
Yeah.
On an occasion, we'll go higher than that to get sort of headliners. We'll do like 2 of those a year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. It's super interesting. We're almost out of time here. That's really interesting. We'll talk more. We're going to talk more when we turn the microphones up. Again, Jennifer Chandler, your wife, I joked about it, but she joined us I guess that's maybe 9 months
really
now, and it's just been fantastic. And she's written about it, so I'll mention it. It's been, it's been a big year for y'all. It's been a rough year at times, but
24
she's working, and it's been fantastic. So she's doing great stuff. You know that, but thanks, Paul Chandler from GPAC. And thank you all for absolutely joining us. You can learn much more. Go to GPAC. You can get more of the events, more of the shows coming up this season, which we didn't get to, but it was interesting to talk about the business. And if you missed any of the episode today, you can go to the Daily Memphian site. You can go to WYXR, or you can go to wherever you get your podcasts and get the full episode. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.